really appreciate you being here this afternoon. We have our final Future Fridays session for this month, and I'm recognizing some of the names. So thank you all so very much for, you know, thank you also very much for continuing to come out and support us and listen to all these different sessions. It's been really great so far, and today is going to be no different. We have with us a special guest, Jules Sobion, and he's going to be talking to us about creative industry, the current environment, and what can we do moving forward. But before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that this is going to be a really interactive session. So please put your questions in the chat, right? You all are driving this afternoon. So all those questions that you all would like to ask Jules, put them in the chat. Make sure when you put it in the chat that you have it at everyone in meeting so that we can all see it, and we will be taking those questions and answering it as we go along today. Okay, so just to give a quick introduction, the Sobion bloodline of visionaries courses through the veins of General Jules Sobion, founder of Ceasar's Army Limited, an event management and production company. Jules has extensive experience in the entertainment arena in Trinidad and Tobago. Son of the brilliant former Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Sobion, Jules credits his father's teachings in shaping his work ethic with substance, merit, and social responsibility. The first of three boys, he recognized his knack for creativity, marketing, and brand management from an early age. While as a Sobion, coming from a long heritage in the field of law, it was expected that he follow suit toward a legal career. Jules decided to chart a different course, a course that would lead him to a successful career in the field of entertainment. In 2006, after formation and subsequent dissolution of numerous events promotion entities, Ceasar's Army, an events company, was born, inspired by the story of well-known Roman conqueror Julius Caesar. Jules, aka Julius, as he is known by many, took the role of General, CEO, Commander-in-Chief of the Army. He had finally recognized that to attract the masses and create buy-in for his events, he would need to create a group, a team, a movement which others would be more keen to follow and see themselves as a part of. The Julius Caesar Entertainment Company, his final venture before birthing Caesar's Army, would now play the role of parent with Caesar's Army as its first child. Like any other, the 14-year story of Caesar's Army is not without its trials and disappointments. In the eyes of its commander-in-chief, these pitfalls were all necessary chapters of learning and development for the betterment of his units. And yet, each victory and every lesson for the Roman commander-in-chief has been followed closely by groundbreaking progress. In the last few months, Jules began work on his latest project under the Julius Caesar umbrella, a new company with a vision of industry development through molding the young and talented individuals under his wing. Under Czar, the newest member of the family, he hopes to create a one-of-a-kind cornucopia of talent representation, management, and brand development, a means through which his clients can reach their highest potential. Jules exemplifies what it means to embrace challenges and change in order to disrupt the market and to create a need that may not have been acknowledged beforehand. A true embodiment of success, Jules Sobion stands as one of Trinidad and Tobago's influencers within the events entertainment arena. So I'm going to hand it over to Jules to start our discussion.
Thank you, Nandi, and pleasant good afternoon to everyone out there. Welcome to Future Fridays. I think I'm here, well, I'm not, I don't think. I'm here to discuss creative brand management, using and not losing your brand positioning during and post-COVID. So I think before I even get into that, I should highlight who I am in respect to brands. Of course, you would have heard about Caesar's Army, which is basically an event and festival production company. I'm also involved in Mass Carnival, with Rogue, which is a collaboration between Ceasar's Army and Tribe, which is a mass band on the road, in particular TNT Carnival. I'm also involved with the brand Ceasar, which Nandi referred to as Zar, but it's Ceasar, C-Z-A-R, which is really a brand management / brand building company. So ideally, I look at entrepreneurs in this space. I can give you an example. Aaron Fingal, who is a DJ and a host, DJ Charlotte, for example, who's a DJ. I look at what they are doing with their brand and I try to build them into bigger brands or even empires. Because what I've found with entrepreneurs is that they may be recognized for only one talent, but really and truly they have a number of passions that they want to see in the future. So Ceasar helps them to build their brand into empires. So in a sense, I could be called a brand architect based on that. And last but not least, the fourth brand is really Ceasar's Army's pivoting during this pandemic. So we have actually pivoted in such a way where we have used the same power of experience that we would have used to build Ceasar's Army through events and festivals. And now we are taking that power of experience to corporate clients to help them explore and build their customer engagement during this new norm. So in a sense, Ceasar's Army is Ceasar creative, but based on the pandemic and pivoting, we have transformed our power, what we do best, into another pathway, especially seeing that events and festivals are not taking place at this time, right? So that's 4 brands for you. Ceasar's Army, as I said before, events and festivals. Ceasar Creative, which is an experiential marketing agency, very similar to a traditional advertising agency, but I would say a new age agency given the expectations and needs for digital media and customer engagement in this new norm. Rogue, which is the carnival band, and Ceasar, which basically are brand architects that help to build entrepreneurs' brands into empires, right? So 4 brands, plenty. So you could actually say that I'm a serial entrepreneur simply because there's a passion within me. I think it really started off with brands, building brands. And it's so funny that I started with events and festivals first before I even decided to go with my latest brand, which is Ceasar, which is about building brands. And that's really where my foundation really lied. All right. So the impact of COVID-19 on the creative and cultural industry. Well, we all understand that there are negatives and positives, but I'm a positive kind of guy, so I will start with the negatives. Firstly, borders are closed. That means we can't go anywhere. People cannot come in as easily as before. And with borders being closed, for somebody in my industry, I haven't been able to travel ever since Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival in February. It should be important to note that I used to travel all throughout the year, visiting different carnivals throughout the year, having events, partaking in carnivals of different territories, and I've been unable to travel anywhere for this year, right? So borders are closed, that's a negative. No large gatherings. There are no events. That means I haven't made money ever since February. So basically, the pandemic has unleashed its wrath ever since, I think, right after TNT's Carnival per se for Trinidad and Tobago. So basically, there haven't been any large gatherings. So that means, for me, I haven't been able to have any events whatsoever. The pandemic is not under control. That's a negative, simply because as an entrepreneur, ever since February of this year, I cannot evaluate or forecast when things are getting back to normal. So in a sense, the pandemic is not under control, so I can't even forecast when next again will I be able to have an event. That's a real negative, because you have to remember that even with being Ceasar's Army, I would have had staff, permanent staff. I would have had expenses on a regular basis. Let's just say rent for the building that we occupy, salaries that have to be paid every month. And when you can't forecast when this pandemic is going to be over, that's a negative, because really and truly, you're kind of left in an unknown. So it's a little shaky in terms of not understanding when this is going to end, because there's no vaccine and there's no cure. Another negative is Carnival 2021 has been cancelled. So even if Trinidad and Tobago had the first and last Carnival of 2020, and we were expecting a bumper year for 2021, Carnival 2021, based on the Honorable Prime Minister, has been cancelled until the waves of change really takes place. Carnival in 2021 is not going to happen. And that means an entire industry and its ecosystem is left with a void. And that's a serious thing, because people may consider Carnival as just persons like myself. It's not just about events and who's doing festivals and who's doing mass carnival bands. It's not just about that. It's about persons who are dealing with infrastructure. It's the decorators, it's the carnival designers, it's the craftsmen, it's the persons who put up your bathrooms in your event, etc., etc. It's an entire ecosystem. So ideally, if Carnival 2021 is cancelled, that means an entire ecosystem is left with a void, and that is a serious negative. And last but not least, of course, I would have said, if Carnival 2021 is cancelled, that means there's no revenue. There's nothing to look forward to next year from events and from mass. There are no tourists coming in. There are no events that are taking place. There are no bands on the road. It's a dire situation. So in terms of the impact in my respect, the impact on the creative and the cultural industry, you can see the negatives are very vast and wide, right? Positive, because I'm a positive kind of person. The positives of the impact of COVID-19. Firstly, it's a whole new world. It's due for exploration and it's due for opportunities. So ideally, I mean, if you have to look on the bright side, it's a new norm. People don't know how to engage with their customers. People are looking for digital media managers, etc., because it's all a digital and a virtual space now. So I think that it's a whole new world, and it's due for exploration, and it's also due for immense opportunities. Another positive is limitless. It's borderless. When you really look at it, the virtual space, the world can be your playground. So I've always said that, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs tend to focus only on Trinidad and Tobago, but you have to remember that the world is your playground, especially through digital media and through this whole virtual space. So I do think that the whole thinking of borders is now removed, because your brand now can be represented on a global scale. There's also the fact of real world events versus virtual events. A factor here is, in my biggest event, maybe Bacchanal Road or Ambush, I may have been able to accommodate maybe 7,000 to 8,000 people in a traditional venue. In the virtual space, I can accommodate 1 million people watching what I am doing, and watching what I am showcasing or highlighting. So in a sense, again, the borders are broken down. The borders have become limitless in such a way that you're able now to send your product, your brand, and your service to the entire world. Another positive is it's a time for metamorphosis. That means things that you have always wanted to do, but you had no time, or you just didn't get a chance to focus on it. Now is the time that you can actually implement those things. And what is really important for me is that even before the pandemic, I was considering, well, my team was considering that Ceasar's Army should have become an experiential agency ever since before. And we never had the time because we were traveling from carnival to carnival, territory to territory. And we were so consumed with producing these events and festivals. So in a sense, now is a time for metamorphosis where things that you were always passionate about or things that you felt that you could have done, now is the time that you're able to actually put it into place. And then last but not least, in terms of positives, new professions are becoming available. Content creators, digital or new media managers, technology specialists or persons versed in streaming or digital platforms, for example. These professions are now becoming even more important. So even from an entrepreneur like myself, especially dealing with this new norm, I am now finding myself that I need to have more digital media presence. I need to have my customer engagement on high. That means that I'm going to require needs from digital media managers and content creators. And so I believe that definitely there are going to be new professions that are going to become widely needed, especially given this new norm. Right? So that's based on the negatives and the positives. And I think that's something that you all should reflect upon, because you all are now becoming entrepreneurs or thinking about becoming entrepreneurs. And these are viable options in terms of, you know, how you can look at the pandemic and post-pandemic if it is that you are about to embark on an entrepreneurial adventure. Students that are already working in the industry or want to jump in, what advice would I give them during this time? This is my advice. Stop thinking about just Trinidad and Tobago. The world is your playground. I'll tell you how it started with me. I started by throwing parties. Yes, parties. I used to call it party. I want to throw a party. And eventually, I got real serious about it because, again, my mother really hated the fact that I went to school for great education and then I looked like I just wanted to throw parties. But eventually, I got really serious about my passion. And I think what really turned it around is that I started to say to myself, I needed to get into Trinidad and Tobago's carnival. I wanted to be known. All the foreigners would come in. That was the space that I needed to be in. And I went from Pan, which was a Sunday Panorama semifinals, having a little posse. And then I went into Juve. And then I realized to myself, whoa, I could be doing much more. And I actually moved from the traditional Juve on Monday morning, and I created an event called Ambush, which was not very well attended on Carnival Saturday for the first time, but because it was such a innovative sort of event, because I had my patrons, I was always listening to my patrons, that event became a huge success in 3 years. I went from having 100 and something people the first year to the third year having about 2,000 people, just because I was listening to my patrons. And the point I want to get here, based on stop thinking about TNT, is that after I did that event in Trinidad and Tobago, Ambush, I was eventually able to take that event to Barbados and then take it to Jamaica. So no longer was I just thinking about Trinidad and Tobago, I was now regional. And then when I had the events in Barbados and Jamaica, Usain Bolt came to the one in Jamaica and Rihanna came to the one in Barbados. So immediately it put me on an international awareness. So for me, maybe it is that I wasn't thinking big enough at the time where I could have said, let me take what I do best and take it to the world. I got some help along the way in terms of some of the Caribbean celebrities being a part of what I did. But eventually I took what I did best from Trinidad and Tobago and eventually took it to the region. And then I was able to start going to Miami, New York, Los Angeles, because I realized that I could have taken what I did best to the world. So stop thinking about just TNT and realize that the world could be your playground, especially during this pandemic virtual world scenario. Another bit of advice, be resilient. A lot of times people just want to give up. They do one event or they get involved in an initiative and it fails and they give up. That doesn't make sense. You have to stick at it. So I'm always saying, I'm always of the opinion, be resilient. Everything takes time to build. Be patient, yet always persevere. Rome was not built in a day, and that is very important. Important message for me personally. Of course, Julius Caesar, Rome was not built in a day. It really just means you have to take time to build what you do best so that it can be recognized. That is the most important thing, because I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs see what I have been doing in terms of events or even mass, and they get involved and they literally bust and they give up. No, I have had many failed events and I continue to trot on, and that's really important as an entrepreneur. And even so, I will tell you from, remember when I said that I had Caesar's Army, and based on the pandemic, I translated or I transformed or I adapted into a new venture, which is Ceasar Creative. I can't expect that I was so successful with Caesar's Army that immediately, as I transform into creative and this experiential marketing agency, that is going to be a success. No, I still have to be able to show and prove, to actually try to ensure that corporate clients understand what we can do for them in terms of the power of experience and how we can innovate when you engage with your customers. So in a sense, Rome was not built in a day. You have to take it step by step. So even though the pandemic unleashed itself in February, and I only really started to release this new company, let's say in October, that doesn't mean that it's an automatic success. It has to be built. So again, it's a waiting game, but once you follow your passion right through, you can see the results. Just remember, Rome was not built in a day. Follow your passion. It will lead to your purpose. I will just say this as an advice, because if I gave up on my passion when I was throwing parties, I wouldn't be where I am today with 4 brands, if you understand what I'm saying. So I believe that once you follow the passion that is inside of you, that is really important, because some people get into things just because it's making money or it look like a fad, or no. Follow what is inside you and eventually it will lead to your purpose. So let's just say my passion may have been into the events and how it's set up and the name of the company and the type of concept. Of course, that was where it started, but look how it evolved after years. Maybe now my true purpose is to build brands, other brands, build other people's brands. Again, I'm still on the road of my passion that is supposed to lead me to my ultimate purpose, but I do believe that if you're going to be an entrepreneur in the creative industry or the cultural industry, you need to follow your passion. Next bit of advice, build a team, one member at a time. Even if you can't hire a set of people, or you may think that they can't hire one. What is the most important thing I think creatives need to focus on are their strengths. What is your craft? I am not a logistical person. I have no time to create a budget. So you know what I did? After I was all involved in terms of creating concepts and themes and building the brand of Ceasar's Army, one of the first persons I brought to the table was somebody to do the budgets, because I couldn't do it. I didn't even like it. So at the end of the day, you have to build a team one person at a time. And as I said before, when you start to build a team, now you as the entrepreneur or the creative can now start to focus on your strengths, while you can allow other persons to kind of focus on your weaknesses, hence being able to build your brand to its potential, right? So build your team on persons who can help. And last but not least, as advice to entrepreneurs, show and prove. Sometimes people will not understand what you are trying to do, but you have to prove it to them. This is really a remarkable point, and this is my last bit of advice for entrepreneurs. When I first started to do Ambush, which was my Juve concept, nobody understood what I was doing. They basically said, why would you move having Juve from Monday morning when it's supposed to be to a Saturday morning? That don't make no sense. You had 2,000 people doing it on Monday morning, and now you want to move it to Saturday? Show and prove. Sometimes people will not understand what is in your head until it's actually real. And that's real important. Bacchanal Road was the same thing. We had pan on Sundays, pan semis, and we were just like, Trinidad and Tobago needs something more than this. Let's do something very similar to jumping up on the road Monday and Tuesday, and let's call it Bacchanal Road. The first year had about 1,000 people. Nobody really understood it. Then 3 to 5 years later, you can't even get a ticket for that event. So sometimes what is in your head, you need to put it out in real, actually sacrifice and do it so that people will now understand, oh, that's what he was talking about all the time. Show and prove. Now I will get into how can you maintain or build your solid brand presence on or offline platforms. Maintaining and building your solid brand presence. I just have a few points and I'll make it very quick. Your social currency is one of your most important currencies of today. I can tell you that as a fact, right? And what people tend to get confused with is that you're not just posting to digital platforms. People love to have opening an Instagram account and are just going and posting, and no, that don't make no sense. Your social currency means how much your community is engaged with what you are putting on your digital media platforms. So it's not about posting, it's about customer engagement. Whatever based on your passion, what you ever believe in, it's supposed to be represented on your digital media platforms, and it's supposed to keep your audience engaged. It's not about posting any and everything. That don't make no sense. You may have a number of followers just based on posting, but are they engaged? Ask yourself that question. Keep your audience engaged with your brand. Point number 2, build a community on this engagement. And I'll tell you this, based on Ceasar's Army, we created a community. So in other words, Ceasar's Army was not just an army, it was actually a community. It was a movement. And what happened is that anytime that we did an event in a different territory, you know what we did? We created a base. So there was Ceasar's Army Trinidad, there was Ceasar's Army Barbados, there was Ceasar's Army Jamaica, there was Ceasar's Army New York, there was Ceasar's Army Miami, there was Ceasar's Army Bermuda, there was Ceasar's Army St. Lucia. We built a community, and it's really important that if you are going to be building on a solid brand presence, you need to build a community based on your brand, your product, and your service. And this comes from engaging with your community. And once you build a community, I'm telling you, it's exceptional, because even in this COVID-19 times, my database, especially with the pivoting to the marketing, experiential marketing agency, my database has become extremely important at this time for other clients to utilize. So building a community, definitely a strong piece of advice in building your solid brand presence. Be unique. Stand out from the rest. It don't make no sense. If I was doing events like everybody else, then I am in that same barrel. No, you have to be unique. So if you're an entrepreneur and you know that everybody else selling jam, what makes your jam different to anybody else's jam? And that means from any aspect of your brand, your product and service. Be unique. You have to stand out. It's very important that you set yourself apart from what everybody else is doing. That's how you'll get recognized. So be unique. And last but not least, in terms of maintaining and building a solid brand presence, disrupt the status quo. When I say disrupt, I mean do things illegally. I really mean disrupt. So in a sense, my events disrupted the norm. I'll tell you an example of disruption. Disruption is when I understood from Trinidad and Tobago, and especially from Carnival, that the stage was a real iconic part of TNT's Carnival. If any of you all are present on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, crossing the stage is euphoric. You know what I did? I took the whole concept of the stage and I built a stage in Barbados and I built a stage in Jamaica, and they knew nothing about a Trinidad and Tobago stage. They were like, what are you building a stage for? That don't make no sense. You don't understand that. But I disrupted the whole thinking because they didn't understand how iconic this was of our culture. So in a sense, even though I was facing negativity about why you're bringing a stage in this event, I don't understand, I brought it, and what I brought with it was also the iconic feeling of crossing a stage for persons who didn't understand that this was so momentous for Trinidad and Tobago and its culture. So that is really important in terms of building a solid brand presence. Disrupt the status quo. Ambush. Monday morning, Saturday morning, disrupt. Bacchanal Road, Monday and Tuesday, come before the carnival, disrupt. Those are disrupting the status quo, and always apply it to your brand, product, and your service. And the last point I was asked to address was, where do you see things going in the future? Are these changes permanent? Will things revert with a vaccine? What would I like to see for the future? Let me tell you what the future holds for me. The future holds for all entrepreneurs, and this is all of you who are out there. The future holds new professions. There are new professions on the horizon. Look out for them, because I'm looking out for people that I need for my brands. And as I said before, that's digital media, that's technology, etc., etc. What else the future holds? More global awareness of what the Caribbean has to offer to the world. That is, oh, something happened there. Sorry about that. What the future holds? More global awareness of what the Caribbean has to offer to the world. That is really important because, as I said now, I'll give you an example. Trinidad and Tobago is no longer happening again. Let me just say as an example, Trinidad and Tobago Carnival is not happening in 2021. Are we simply just supposed to not do anything? No, this is a perfect opportunity for us to be able to highlight and showcase what we always wanted to show the world. So for me, this is an opportunity for more global awareness of not just the fets and the events and the mass. This is now an opportunity to highlight kings and queens. This is an opportunity to highlight stick fighting. This is an opportunity to highlight what the culture means to us. So for me, there's more global awareness of what the Caribbean on the whole has to offer to the world. Next thing what the future holds, it also holds a fusion or a unified force of creatives like yourself alongside or multiplied by tech and technology. I really believe that there's going to be a lot more fusion with that. So if it is that you are creative and you are involved in the cultural industry, I'm telling you, the most important thing right now is start looking for technology partners to try to enhance exactly how you portray your brand in this new norm. And then virtual experiences are going to become even more popular, and they're going to become even more experiential, because what is going to happen now is that you're going to be able to start experimenting with virtual reality, augmented reality, and just creating more of an experience through the virtual landscape. You know, there are a number of things that, as I said, are due for exploration. So now we have to be able to kind of go with the flow and start to be stronger about how virtual experiences can become more experiential. That is going to be a real key. And again, I will say, highlight your virtual product for Carnival 2021. Again, it's all about filling voids. Don't just seem like, you know, basically, I'm not accustomed to this world. I don't know what to do. I know a lot of us feeling intimidated and fearful, confused. But again, that's what exploration is about. Get in there, understand the new world, and see how best that you can be a part of it. Don't wait for normalcy to come back. That's not happening. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to embrace change. So again, last but not least, we cannot wait for things to get normal again. We must embrace change. Even with the vaccine, some things may become normal or some get a semblance of normalcy. But again, it's not about waiting. And what is really important for me as a message, I guess my last message to you all, is that attribute of how I took Ceasar's army and what I did best in terms of the power of experience, and I was able to convert or pivot that into an experiential marketing agency. So now, even if things come back to normal and I can have events again, great, Ceasar's army is still there. And at the same point in time, on the same right hand, the experiential marketing agency that is creative is still there as well. So it's no longer a point of either or. It's actually both and more. So I think I've covered all the questions here in terms of what I was asked to speak about. But I really just want to say, if I can do it, and I started off throwing parties, I don't remember that, party, you don't go to school, you don't educate yourself for party. I started off throwing parties where I was able to actually build a company that was no longer just domestic. It was not just regional. It went international. And I was able to still build brands according to my passion and my purpose. So if I can do it, you all can do it too. Nandi?
Awesome. Very encouraging and motivational, Jules. And I think I actually want to start with the last question that came in based on how you ended. You said that parties, right? You don't study for parties. Nobody says, um, I'm going to make a living throwing parties necessarily. Think about it that way. And the last question that I have here from a student is it important to have a backup plan like creatives are always taught to do? So, when we aspire to do these crazy things that we have, that we enjoy doing, that we think there's a market for, an audience for, this idea of, your parents behind, you're hearing your parents' voice saying, well, study accounting just in case, or study something a bit more traditional. You have any thoughts about that you could share?
Well, um, I came from an attorney family. My family were lawyers. All my father was attorney general, actually. So it was really weird that he never really pushed me into the direction of being a lawyer, right? And I was still trying to find myself because I think that my passion based on being a professional was to get into business. And that's where I really, I went to school to study business administration. But all the time, I always had that passion inside me, in terms of, it was my mother who actually had, she had fashion shows and tea parties. That's what actually got me excited about events now. But I understand the whole aspect of having a backup plan. And what is really important is that I used to work at UE Marketing and Communications while juggling Caesar's army. And because I was 50-50, I was like, I need to get this stable income. I still try to align my passions because it was marketing and communications. So I was still in this stable income, but then I was also looking at Caesar's army and what I really believed in. And eventually I had to break away from trying to do both because I realized that I thought I was doing 100%, like I was beating on my body, trying to do 100%, when really and truly I might have been given 50% to my job and 50% to my passion. And eventually I had to gradually go 100% into Caesar's army. So I do understand the whole trials of, making sure that you have that stable income and being able to, to live life. But I still do believe there will come a time when your true passions are going to say to yourself, hey, it's time to take me on because I feel like, we could go places. And that's what eventually happened to me. I eventually ended up leaving marketing and communications to pursue what I really believed in. And honestly, I don't want to say I never look back because I still have friends in marketing and communications, but I haven't looked back based on following my purpose.
Yeah, and I think that's the ideal. A lot of us who have our passions on the side, the idea is to have it grow and then take over, what we do to have a stable income and that type of thing. Um, One of the first questions that came in, when you were speaking about your different brands, Ceasar, Creative, Road Carnival, and Caesar's Army, a question that came in was this the goal from the get-go, having so many brands, or did you just see opportunities and took them?
Say that one more time there, Nandi, please.
The question was it from the get-go that you planned on having so many different brands, or did you just see the opportunities and you just took them?
That's why I always say your passion will lead to your purpose, because I never knew all of this would have happened. To be real honest, I started off with the events, and then the events got popular, and that's when I started to say, hey, why don't I have a carnival band? And I actually started to have this carnival aspect to it in terms of a band, and I actually started to partner with bands from other countries. And then eventually, I guess my real inner passion was building brands, because I really love that. And that's why Ceasar came back to me. So it's really weird, like, as you really follow your heart or you follow your dreams, you find doors just opening. Because let's just say, as for example as well, I sit on the board for the National Academy of Performing Arts. I had no reason why I would want to be involved in that. And as I got involved with that, I realized that, wow, you know, I could get involved in theater and I could bring Broadway to Trinidad. So in a sense, it's kind of like, as you really follow your dreams, doors will open gradually. And this is why I say it starts with your passion first. If you negate or neglect your passions, really and truly, you're going to do something that you really didn't really want to do. And you may be following a false sense of what you are. And really and truly, as I have followed my dreams throughout this path, I realized that the real foundation was based in on inside what I really felt I was passionate about.
Right. And just in terms of like building a new brand, like you started off with Caesar's Army and then you branch off into different things. I don't know if you could talk about some of the things that you have to avoid doing in terms of building a new brand, in terms of, you know, so that you don't confuse it with what you previously have, and maybe it's a slightly different audience, although there might be synergies with all three of them.
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, it's not like it really, as you're building something, right? You will find out what you're. So take for example, I would have said that in building events, I didn't really like production. I like the finished product. I like marketing. I like taking a concept and being able to put it out there now. So in a sense, maybe my characteristic was Jules just loves building brands and concepts and themes, and he loves marketing. He loves communicating about what he is building, that kind of thing. Now, so I realized like that was my foundation, and eventually, you know, as you experimenting, etc., you'd realize that there are a number of difficulties as well. You know, you might want to collaborate with somebody because you feel like you're on the same head. And I've went through a number of collaborations which did not pair properly. And I think really and truly, what I was really trying to do with other people is really I should have started off with doing for myself. I needed to feel secure on what path I wanted to go before I started collaborating. So there are a number of things that happen in terms of the journey or the path. But again, the foundation of it all is really trying to understand what do I do best. So like take for example, I love documentaries. I would love to start filming and being on creating documentaries based on our culture. I haven't reached that part of the journey as yet, but I know to myself, I'm passionate about it. So in a sense, the whole foundation of even building a brand is based on what you are passionate about. There are a number of things that you may go through that are going to be failures. But as Marshall said in his new song, an L is no longer a loss, an L is now considered a lesson. So it's really important for you to understand that failure and mistakes are going to be part of the whole journey. And this is why I've always said that resilience and perseverance and persistence is necessary on any entrepreneurial journey.
Right. And that segues nicely into a question that one of the students asked, which is, apart from COVID, what were some of the hardest challenges since 2006 when you began?
Money.
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 Feel you with that one.
Here's the thing, right? Back in the day, in my days, right? No bank wants to give you money to throw a party. I actually had to build a respect and a relationship with banks to be actually saying that, listen, Royal Bank, listen, Republic Bank, I am sure that this is going to work. I really need the money to borrow. And I eventually started to do this consistently, building a relationship, because my most important thing was I could not fail the bank in terms of what I was promising them. So first of all, I might have started with getting my parents real interested in what I'm doing, because everybody knows that normally it's your mother and father who really try to nurture their children. So my mom, not really my mom, no? She was vexed with me from the start. But my father used to invest in my events. Actually, God rest his soul, I still have so much money to pay him back for, but he really started off investing in my what I believe was my passion. And then it got so serious for me that I had to be a businessman, and I had to approach banks where I probably will have a little savings account or whatever the case is. And I remember Royal Bank giving me my first checking account, and that's when I started to get into the world of business. It's all about fulfilling promises, because a lot of the times people consider what they're doing as a hustle, and there's no sort of long-term plan. It kind of comes like, I go hustle this for today, so hopefully something will happen again tomorrow. And what happened with me on my journey, I believe like this was not hustle. This was a long-term thing for me, and I had to keep building. Rome wasn't built in a day. So eventually, after getting the respect from the banks, that's when I started to get recognized for what I'm doing. And it became like a business initiative and a business venture. And slowly but surely, I started to build some prominence where even I became awarded or recognized in 2017 as Entrepreneur of the Year by the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce, which, if you understand, somebody who doing parties can be recognized as an Entrepreneur of the Year. So imagine what that did for how the banks think of my profession. It came as, there's a newfound respect for the profession, not just from an events perspective, but it looks like it's a creative industry perspective. It's a successful entrepreneur, and at the same point in time, it could be recognized as a sustainable industry. So in a sense, it's kind of like building until you get recognized, show and prove, until you get recognized for what you consider from a long-term perspective.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of really key things in that answer there, Jules, just in terms of keeping your promise, and delivering on the things that you say that you're going to deliver on. I mean, for the banks, but even for your customers, for your audience, and just building that reputation, as well as thinking long term and not short term in terms of, it's just, you're just looking at it from hustle to hustle versus the full picture. So I think, that's really key advice right there again for, the students who are listening on this conversation. And a question that came in while you were talking was, how do you sell your ideas to investors? So I just thought I would throw that in since it's related.
Well, again, selling ideas to investors means that you have to create a perfect business plan. Like, it's still being requested. So if it is that, you have something big and it really needs to be illustrated, it really needs to be expressed through a visual a business plan. And nowadays, things are so visual that it's not just a matter of compiling paper or document and say, hey, read that. Now you have to be able to visualize what it is that you're planning to become or what it is that you're trying to do in the best way possible. I mean, if we could even afford a hologram to show personal, so to show investors what it is that you're really doing, I would invest in it, because I find that most of the time, people don't really understand what you're trying to do until you really do it. So for me, a business plan, a comprehensive business plan about what you're trying to achieve is the best way to start. But I would always say, try to be more visual with it, because at the end of the day, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Right. So another question that came in, I'm going to read it. It's a bit long. People tend to think of the socio-economic implications of COVID on the cultural creative industry as it relates to the big population, brands, and stakeholders. No one ever thinks of the smaller businesses and cultural worker, like you said. As a performer, a dancer, I've been generating next to no revenue because I would perform in events and for promotion purposes. How do you get people not involved in the cultural creative industry to understand and respect the smaller creators and our need for job opportunities?
Show and prove. Here's the thing, right? So I am involved in events. I'm involved in mass. So think about it, right? I have no events taking place. They don't even want to mention us when it comes to COVID reports or updates. Like, we are the last to be even opened up or considered. The PM, Honorable PM, said Carnival is cancelled. That basically is in the ecosystem's head. They can say that the industry is cancelled. But it's not to just sit down there and just say to yourself, well, life is over. I think, like, and this is just my personal opinion here. What I try to do now in terms of, let's say, highlighting or showcasing or finding ways to still make the culture exist and survive and thrive, I am not trying to find solutions just for me to become successful. I think now is the time that we try to find ways. This is why I say collaboration is key. Let us try to find ways that we can explore the new world that can benefit the entire ecosystem. So let me give you an example here. If we were to come together and provide a virtual product for Trinidad and Tobago 2021, take it to the world, so the world will and see, okay, this is what Carnival represents to us. And that provides an example for persons who are stakeholders of the industry that, hey, maybe it is that I could start to do things virtually, and maybe I could start to monetize it, because people may be interested in dance or theater or documentaries or movies or artists, soca artists, chutney artists, rapso artists, finding ways to use digital platforms to monetize, to stream, pay-per-view. We have to start looking for ways to embrace the change. We can't just say here, oh gosh, I'm waiting for large gatherings to happen again so I could get employed for an event or I could be on a show. No, we have to be able to start to utilize what we have and embrace it and try to find ways to monetize it. Because at the end of the day, when I would have started even doing events, as I said before, I used to have some events that was maximum failure. And I was wondering where the money coming from to do a next event. But at the end of the day, because I stuck on the course of saying that this is something that I believe in, it eventually became successful. So in a sense, we have to try things in order to see if it will lead us to the promised land.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the ecosystem, not just thinking about yourself, but the all the team, so to speak. And I think that's really key, the cultural community, coming together. in this time and even after. But my question is, a lot of the success of, the different people, different performers, everybody, is a lot of it has to do with the team behind them. And the lesser known names, they're not household names like Marsha Montano and whatnot, but they have these people behind them that really creating their success. I don't know if you have any thoughts on how can someone go about building that team. You mentioned it, in terms of your advice, build a team. How can somebody go about building that team to drive their success?
I think the first thing that you have to look in a team member is somebody who is going to help organize your stuff administratively. I think that's the first thing that you need to find out, because for creatives, we thinking about the big picture. You understand? And when you start to think in the clouds, somebody has to be dealing with the stuff on the ground. You understand? So for me, that's the first move that I would make now. I wouldn't say that the first thing I will do is I need a digital media manager, I need a brand manager, and go wild. It's really looking at yourself, and you have to humble yourself in such a way that you say to yourself, my strength is this, or my strengths are this, and I believe that my weakness may be I'm not structured, I'm not on time, I'm not fulfilling administrative elements, I'm not even returning phone calls or emails. At the end of the day, you have to build your team one member at a time. And I always would say that, and they have a couple of entities out there now, even one of my staff members, my general manager for Ceasar's Army actually, she has become a business manager for outside clients, right? Because for the pandemic, everybody was getting a chance to metamorphosize things that they wanted to become. They now have the opportunity to try it. And she became a business manager, which means somebody who keeps you correct administratively. And a lot of the times, I find entrepreneurs are just all over the place. So they need somebody to say, hey, has your business been registered? Hey, do you have an official email? Hey, do you have an official digital media platforms that you can start to promote and showcase your brand, product, and service? You need people like that to actually kind of ground off the company or the business that you're trying to create. And then slowly and surely you'll realize that things are getting better. Things are getting more organized. And that's when you start to build, and you have an actual capable team responsible for the brand or the product or the service that you have always seen the potential for.
Yes. So that's really good advice. That administrative stuff, dealing with money and all that good, it's good to have somebody else worry about that for you.
At that point, I wasn't studying any money. I wasn't studying money.
Well, yeah. So another question is, do you see the need for creators to formalize their education and training in institutions such as DCFA for their growth?
I do agree. I do agree that you can start academically install within your DNA where your passions are going to lead you. So definitely, if it is that, let's just say, I want to be involved in carnival. Let's just say that's a passion for me now. Academically, I would align myself to those courses or those degrees, etc., so I can build up myself in a professional standard. I would love to have the academic aspect of what I do best in my resume, which is really important as well now. So for me, back in my day, I mean, we didn't even have event management classes in my day. They didn't have event management. That was a new thing that was coming out. In fact, event managers was a new thing altogether. So little by little, when it did come out, it wasn't even Lockjack then. I can't remember what it was. No? I can't remember the name of the school, but it became Lockjack. And that's where I started to do event management, because academically, for my resume, which is really important still, maybe from where I've reached now, my resume may not be as important because I've kind of set myself of a standard in the industry that I'm in. But before, resumes was an integral part of how you get employed, right? But to fulfill that requirement, I would definitely say academically, you would want to show that you have that strength that is leading towards your passion so that you can eventually go off on your own and become the prospective entrepreneur.
So I'm looking at the time. So I want to get to some of the other questions we have here. What is the most important lesson you learned so far since you began your career?
Most important lesson, boy, I have a few, but I think the most important lesson for me was really and truly the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. As an entrepreneur, my mother, my mother chastised me. She was like, I never sent you to school for this, right? And eventually, over the years, my mother grew so close to me based on how she saw me progress from when I first started to what I am now. So definitely for me, it is amazing to see where you would have started and how, let's say, your loved ones, because my mom was very there and there to my heart, how my loved ones would have perceived me at the start and then start to support me when she realized that this was actually becoming a real thing. And even for me, it was a shock because I was like, I can't believe like how the doors are opening now in terms of future prospects and it really just started off with me just watching my mom having tea parties and fashion shows on the lawn and saying, I like how this whole thing's set up. I think I want to do my own party. And look at it now, I doing events as far as Switzerland. So the sky is the limit in terms of your potential. You just need to follow your passion and it will lead you to your purpose. So I think the sky is the limit. That's my that is my biggest lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it might sound cliche, but I mean, and I think that's probably the reason why some people sort of have that success and other people don't, because the people who really think the sky is the limit, they do it, and they follow their passion and they see things happen. So I I like that, even though it may sound pretty common. Um,
Yeah, but it is also compounded by the fact that you cannot give up. That is the most important fact in respect to the sky is the limit. You cannot give up. You must persevere. You must persist. In times of failure, you must pick up that load and walk again. And that is most important because when this pandemic happened, there are a lot of people who came to me and said, how you going, boy? I see like you have no events again. That must be real hurting you, boy. Carnival get cancelled too, boy. Oh gosh, how you going to survive? Because there's a mindset that if something is taken away from you, you cannot adapt or transform into something else. So for me, that is resilience. That is persistence. You will not give up even in times when there is a holistic thought that you have failed. And that's the most important part. You have to be resilient. If you fail, look for another way, find a way, you must be persistent.
Right. And this question here is, have you ever thought about having mentorship or internship programs for persons, maybe you already do, Jules, persons who are interested in marketing, etc., in terms of working on events and doing other tasks, learning about the industry, etc.?
Yes. Are you getting a lot of rain by me because it's raining?
I just started to hear a little bit in the background.
I'll try
Yeah.
to talk over it. Yes, Ceasar was actually supposed to be have an arm that was based on mentorship. What happened though is that I have not found a way to really mentor the number of persons that may come to me. So I'm still trying to find what is the best way to deal with that. Maybe it may be a very high-reaching sort of initiative, but I've been unable to really, the number of people that want to get mentored is a lot. So I'm really trying to see how best it can happen. I know for a fact though that I did do in collaboration with Volunteer Center of Trinidad and Tobago. I did a initiative called Me to We Mentorship, which was eventually had to become virtual. But again, that was dealing more on mentorship from a school perspective, secondary school, young adults, I would say. But now I'm looking at those in the entrepreneur space. How can I mentor? How can I help guide? It's something that is still developing. But I do know for a fact that is most needed right now in our society.
Right. Awesome. And I have another question here that sort of goes back to knowing your brand, which is, how do you figure out what your audience desires? And that question kind of got me to thinking about when you were talking about disrupting doing something different that people don't understand. And then made me think also of Steve Jobs and some of the products he's innovated. It was like, people don't know they need it, they will know they need it when it arrives. So I mean, I don't know if you could just kind of talk around that.
Um, One of the most important things in terms of being an entrepreneur is listening to your customers. That is real important. And I'll tell you why it's important. The juve that I was having on Carnival Monday morning was a very disorganized form of event, right? Because it's really like, if those who know about Trinidad and Tobago juve, the streets are yours. You can basically start in Federation Park or start in St. James or start in Maraval, wherever you want to start, and you do your juve. And what happens is that I realized that I was bouncing up other juve bands where we couldn't even pass each other. There were stormers, that is people who would storm your band. So you actually have paying customers who are in your band, and then somebody from any part of the road just come and jump in the band and start to whine and whatever it is with your masqueraders, and it seems like you're out of control. And then I think that for the females in particular, they started to say that this juve thing on Monday morning, I rather go and get my makeup and thing to get ready for Monday mass, and they stopped coming to juve, right? And I was listening. I had to listen to my patrons because I'm hearing about all these complaints about, stormers and these, you can't pass other juve bands. You might pass a juve band that's super big and it takes you about an hour to move, So I was listening to my patrons, and that's what prompted the decision to say, I wonder if I could do a juve in my own venue. So I would eliminate the whole aspect of passing bans or traffic. I would eliminate stormers. I would give more time for the young ladies or the young women to not study about having to do their makeup on Carnival Monday morning. So listening to your customers actually provided me with an option or alternative solution. And that's what really made the success for that ambush juve. And it's the same thing with Pan on the Greens. It was getting expensive. You were getting lost in the crowds. They had restrictions where you had to take off your music based on the pan. So it was kind of like my customers were starting to get agitated and they were looking for a product that was to their liking. So in a sense, it's my customers that actually perfected the product that they wanted. So it's important that, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but it's really the customers that really help you to perfect the product that you are going to put out there. And that's exactly what happened with listening to my consumers and starting to procure the right product that they wanted.
Right. So, I mean, I know one of the ways you would hear from your consumers would be your social media platform. Anything else that you do to get feedback from them?
I always use these feedback questionnaires. I would email them, engage them, because some of the time, and not even some of the times, I say all of the time, you want to get feedback not just from your customers, but you also want to get feedback from your team or your staff members. You want to get their sense of thinking, because a lot of the times entrepreneurs feel that everything in their head is exactly how the world is thinking or exactly how their customers are thinking. And really and truly, you would be surprised at how other people may give you the understanding that is necessary for you to implement greatness to your brand, product, and service. A lot of the times, a lot of the feedback or the thoughts that come from my team are so left field from what I normally think as a person that if I did not get that feedback, I would not be where I am today. So it's definitely important from a team perspective, and it's even more important from a customer perspective, trying to find innovative ways. And I guess, how can you really get the feedback? Because you can't send some long survey. Nobody wanted to take that on. So what I will do is I'll add a little prize. Maybe you'll win a Ceasar's Army Carnival pass for all our events if you provide this feedback to us. You got to find ways of really getting the necessary feedback so that you could implement it in your brand, product, and service.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier about, customer engagement versus just, okay, so you have a lot of followers, but are they engaging? Are they listening to you? Are they, do you have that influence over them, in terms of the products that you're providing and that type of thing? Okay, so we have a few more questions left. So one student just kind of fired off and just had like a series of questions. Well, actually just two. So I'm just gonna throw them out and you could just answer. How do you find money to throw another event after the previous event failing? How did you feel before you became successful not having persons believe and support you?
For the first question, how did I find money? I don't know. I just there were times when it really seemed like this is the end, but I don't know. I was just persistent. I think that, I mean, of course, there was the support from my parents, but I really believe like I had to because I knew this was a long-term thing for me, I approached the financial institutions when it was very difficult in my time. I approached them trying to be very professional, trying to be very, what should I say, being able to forecast, like analyze what it is that I'm doing. So yes, I'm borrowing this, but I can guarantee that in 3 months' time, I will repay this entire loan. That's how it was for me back in the days. But I always believed in what I was doing now. So even if I at times failed, I always had something remaining as like a heritage and a stabilization fund. I always kept back something. And that's why it was never really a hustle. Because even when I had something set aside for rainy days. It was always like that now. So I really never ever felt that it was the end, simply because I knew that I had to save money for long-term purposes or bigger goals, if you catch what I'm saying now. So
Yes.
I never was really out and had to return to the pavilion. I always had the ability to fight another day. What was the second question again?
How did you feel about how did you feel before you became successful not having persons believe and support you?
It was frustrating. People never really people rather to see your demise than your success. And for me, I was always out there, not just to prove them wrong, but to prove to myself that I really believed in what my passion was. So I think, like, for me, it was deterring, it was discouraging. But I also had solace with persons who really believed in me as well now. And that helped me to continue to trod forward, to trod on. Having those people in my life, even if it meant one person who always believed in you. And I think, like, for me, my dad was always like that. He was always like, I'm not pushing you to become what I want, what I became. I just want you to make sure that you firmly believe in it and you stick to it. So he never really tried to make me a lawyer or tried to say that I needed to be an engineer or a doctor, which was all the professions back in the day that would have secured your success in a profession. He really said to me, make sure that this is what you want to do, stick to it, and really believe in yourself. And really having those persons in my life really allowed me to really become who I am today.
Awesome. And this is our final question.
Woo!
What is your work-life balance like? As Commander-in-Chief, what does that look like?
This is a real good question. I'll tell you why.
I think so too.
This is a real good question. Because I am married. I'm also married to an entrepreneur who used to be involved in events, Candy Coated. She used to be Candy Coated events. Now she's Candy Coated experiences. So she is also following her path and realized that she is more into tourism rather than events. So you would have seen that she got popular from events, same way like me, but now she's tourism. So she used to take people on trips to Israel and South Africa and India, etc. And now with the COVID, she is now doing domestic tourism. So she takes people all over the place in Trinidad and Tobago. So just recently I went to Caroni Bird Sanctuary, which was candy coated in terms of our experience, right? But anyhow, we're talking about work-life balance. So I have a wife and I have a home. So I have to make sure that home is home and work is work. So ideally, when I was an entrepreneur, I was straight focused. I talk about before 24/7, 24/7, straight Ceasar. That's all I'm thinking about. Work. I would work 6 days, 7 days a week. being married and having an understanding of how you cannot just be working all of the time, it is where I realized that a work and a personal life balance is very necessary, because there's a time dedicated to rest, there's a time dedicated to personal, family, wife, etc., even yourself, personal well-being. Because what will happen is that mental anguish, mental illness, stress, these factors come into play. So it's very important that you have a work-life balance. I am not saying I'm a Roman Catholic, but I believe I'm of the world. There's God made the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh. It is important that you find time for yourself, for rest, for spiritual renewing on that 7th day. So I do believe that it's necessary to not be all work, but also take time for yourself, to renew yourself with spiritual reinvigoration. It is important for that healthy individual in you. So I definitely would say that it's important to make sure that you have that balance between how much you invest in your work. I know all entrepreneurs are all gung-ho on becoming successful, etc. But there is a need for time to yourself and to your family and to your loved ones. Make sure that you have a separation of your work and your personal life. That is my advice to you.
And that's a great way to end. It's good advice. Everybody, I hope you're listening. Even as you're building your brand and you're coming up, still take that time for, self-care. And Jules, just want to really thank you for taking the time out to come this afternoon to talk to our students. We really appreciate it. And I mean, I'm looking at the comments and they definitely appreciate it too. Thanks so much, all caps. You're an icon, you admin, great job. So we really appreciate you coming out. We have an evaluation. We've shared it in the chat and the link, guys. So you all could go ahead. It's not going to take too long, just a few minutes. Can't promise you any promotional items if you all fill it out, but we really appreciate it if you give us that feedback. And yes, the recording will be made available. Just keep checking the email. You will find out about that. Thanks again, Jules. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there and take care.
Nandi?
Yes, sure.
To all the entrepreneurs out there, if I can do it, you can do it too. I am telling you, it's just your passion and your purpose. Hold firm, do not give up, and take what you do best and share it with the world. And that is my last point.
Yes. Awesome.
And you, blessings every time.
Yeah, same to you, Jules. Take care, everyone. Bye.